We are live for day 2 of the Summer Championship of HCT. Welcome everybody to Elimination Day. My name is Frode and I am joined on the analyst desk by Brian Kilber, the ever so handsome, the ever so wonderful, as well as Sottle as well. So we are going to cover a lot of the action, not just previewing day 2, but also talk about day number 1. So Kilber, talk to me about what stuck out to you from the first day of play.
I think one of the things that's most impressive that stuck out was just the players who made it through the quarterfinals. You know, Pavel, the reigning world champion, now 12-0 in the summer season. We see the 4 of them on the screen just there. Any of these players would be a worthy champion.
Yeah, I think Pavel aside, who it just seems to be a truth self-evident at this point that Pavel's going to turn up to a tournament and do well. The standout for me is that the other 3 guys are all representing either China or Asia Pacific, and that has not really been the case in previous championships.
And of course, the big story that everyone's talking about, Pavel is 12-0 the summer season, and he is the player to be feared. Take a look again at what he was talking about heading into this tournament.
This is serious business this weekend, and I prepared before this championship a lot. My main target is just to get top 4 to qualify to the World Championship, because in this case I'll be the first World Champion who managed to qualify to the World Championship twice in a row. I'll try my best to do that.
His best is pretty good. Here's a couple of other trends that's also happening as Asia Pacific currently has a top record at 4-2. We do want to point out that 2 players from APAC are already in the top 8, and we've never had more than 2 players from APAC in the top 8 at its championship event. Can we set a new record today?
Maybe we can.
Maybe we can. Also want to point out that none of the first-timers also won their group. All of them on the brink of elimination. Old Boy and Empanizado are also at 1-1. Coco Sauce and Orange at 0-1. And also, a lot of the matches went to 5 games. There's only one sweep, which was Tom60229 over Old Boy in what was a dominant match. You know, lots of the trends happening. And of course, one of the things to pay attention to is how these regions are stacking relative to history. Everyone expected the European dominance. Wasn't the case yesterday, Brian.
Yeah, and China really underperformed in Shanghai and have not yet gotten a player through to the World Championship. Doing pretty well here. Jason Zhou already through to the quarterfinals.
Yeah, that's right. And then, you know, talking about regions too, the differences. Did you feel like there was any difference compared to what we saw in previous seasons, Sottle?
I felt like there were some differences in individual players coming up against each other in terms of skill level, but it did feel, honestly, like the regions were the most evenly matched, whether that's down to the player pool in particular for this tournament just being more even, or whether the region gap is closing, I don't know, but I'm fascinated to see where it goes from here.
Or perhaps maybe we're reading too much into the players and not enough into the classes and the lineups. This is what we've been seeing yesterday, and boy, what a story was told by Shaman overperforming at almost 80% win rate, going 7-2 there. And of course, Mage being able to take its win. Not that too much sample size, but the big concentration in the middle. Rogue and Priest. Right. What happened, Sottle?
I mean, it's fascinating because quite often the best ladder decks, the most dominant decks in the metagame, do underperform in tournaments because they're being hard targeted by a lot of people who know that everyone is going to bring these decks. That's not really the case in the tournament metagame that we have this week. Rogue and Priest are being nodded to a little bit with tech decisions. There's everyone making their deck a little bit more greedy. Ken Bloodhoof going in, Sea Giants going in. But these are techs that you could very realistically play on ladder as well, where both of these decks are still dominating. So it's surprising to me that Rogue and Priest are both running under 50% right now.
Do want to point out that out of all the 9 classes, 7 of them are represented in the top 8 already. But 2 of them that are missing, Hunter, of course, at a 0% win rate, and Warrior. And, you know, Kibble, I just wanted to throw that in there before you get a chance to respond to
Yeah, well, I just think that the fact that so many of the 4th decks are doing so well.
Yes.
You know, so many people bringing the Rogue, the Druid, and the Priest to this tournament. And we see it is the Shamans, the Mages, and the Paladins, you know, that are actually performing extremely well. Whether that's because those decks are stronger in general than people think, or because the specific versions people have brought have good matchups against those 3. It's like, well, why are those the 4th decks? Why aren't those the 2nd and 3rd decks?
Yeah, I think one last thing that we do have to touch on, though, is that you saw Rogue and Priest just have the highest sample size because they are the most common decks in the tournament. Maybe as we see those 4th decks, as you put it, pick up more games, they'll trend further towards that 50% of the others. We'll see what the results are at the end of day 3. I'm sure that'll be much more interesting than day 1.
Also note, Drew's been banned 16 out of 24 times. If we add every single win to that column, if we count a ban, Dan. Druid's doing phenomenally, as it is public enemy #1 for a lot of people, as well as Priest. We're not the only people here that are going to talk about the games, though. Over on the other side of the tavern, we were joined by That's Admirable and TJ Sanders, already putting out the finger guns, so ready for an explosive day 2.
We always had the finger guns out. That's how we roll here. But I'm looking forward to day number 2. It's do or die for a lot of these players, and I couldn't be more excited for today, Admirable.
Same boat. First match with Nalguidan versus Trunks coming up. During the interviews, we spoke a lot to these guys. And Trunks is someone that we became familiar with over a couple championships now. But at 0-1, he's got a lot of work to do. And frankly, I'm a bit concerned for his Warrior.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, and we'll get into that in a moment. But let's go ahead and go through the other elimination matches that we're going to be seeing in the first half of today. Following Nalguidan and Trunks is going to be Amix versus Wuya. And both those players have pretty interesting lineups. Wuya more with his techs, but Amix with the control lineup. Both those guys struggling as we move into day 2.
Yeah, then Orange is going to be taking on Yeteers. Yeteers is the lone representative from the United States. The other 3 America's representatives are outside the United States. And Orange, with his first HCT appearance, has a lot to prove if he's going to make it out today.
Yeah, and that's a big one too. That first one there, Orange versus Yeteers, because 2 struggling regions currently trying to get through. But here they are, Nalguidan and Trunks, getting ready for their first matchup. They're upstairs playing some practice games, trying to get their heads in the right mindset as they're facing elimination in that first match.
And that's a rough one to sit through, where you've had the entire night to think about it. You've looked at the deck list. You've seen how some of your spots performed. Dwelling on it certainly doesn't help, but I can't blame anyone for doing it in that moment. That's what I'd be doing. I wouldn't be able to think about anything else.
Yeah, and we'll get in that match in just a moment. And before I send it back over to Dan, we got a little bit of something fun in store. It's time to play a game, and that game is called Guess the Player. Sure you do. I'm going to run you guys through an example game here to go over the rules and for the audience at home. I guess the player works like this. I'm going to present you with some facts about a player, and you have to guess which player among the 16 at the championship that those facts belong to. For the example, we'll use a player that said it takes 8 hours to learn a new deck. All-time favorite deck is Patron Warrior, has been taking English lessons, and here's a tough one, is the 2016 Hearthstone World Champion. Of course, that's Pop.
All the way to the last one, I thought it was Sottle kind of going into it, but if you said 2017 prediction champ.
Hey, Raven is the one that needs English lessons, all right?
Yeah. But we're gonna get into some tougher ones. Let's actually get into the real one, and I'm gonna present the facts and put on the line for you guys to guess. First player, played on a top 8 TESPA team, is an aspiring programmer/developer, and if he can't win, he's rooting for Wuya. We'll start at the very end. Frodan, what's your guess?
This one's pretty easy for me. The only person that played in TESPA was Yeteers. He's also American.
He's right.
Yeah.
Yeteers.
Anybody else want to get a different guess?
I remember because we're signing him up to design Mine and Admirable's card game. He's going to be our developer. Yeah.
It's called Cardman, for those of you. Hashtag sell up, but Yeteers is correct. I think that was an easy one, considering Test was very limited, but we'll move on. Maybe the next one will be a little bit tougher. Guess the player. Played cards competitively since age 13. Has two career DreamHack top 8 finishes and almost missed the flight to Los Angeles for the championship. Admiral, we're going to go with you first this time.
I know somebody who misses a lot of flights, and he's not quite purple, but I do think he's orange.
Those colors are close.
Yeah.
So orange is your guess. Sottle?
It is orange. No man is capable of missing as many flights as he is.
He told us a lengthy story about it. Yeah, it's orange.
All right, let's go ahead and reveal. You guys are correct. It is orange, and he actually told us a bunch of stories about all of his missed flights.
Yeah, or almost missed flight. Apparently, Sichuan sauce reminded him of his flight.
It really did.
Because he really wanted Sichuan sauce, and
Yeah.
he realized that was the day before his flight.
Yeah, hit him up on Twitter if you want that story, because it's quite a long one. But let's go ahead in the last guess the player here. Is an avid deck builder, hit rank 1 legend with Aggro Paladin, and wants to preserve the national tradition of World Championship qualifiers. Kibler, you get the first guess this time around.
This one's actually tough. I do not know this one off the top of my head.
Oh, hit him with the buzzer.
You could buzz me right now. There it is. I don't know it. I don't know it. I can guess, but I already got buzzed. Sorry.
Anybody else want to?
It's Pikachu, right? That's how this works.
Wow, who knew that?
I'm
I'm going to go out on a limb and just say I think it's Surrender.
Okay. Saddle?
I seem to remember the rank 1 aggro paladin thing being Coco Sasa. I might be wrong, but we'll see.
Let's
Admirable?
go with Coco Sasa as well.
All right, let's see. Coco Sasa.
Oh, wow.
All right, well, I just want to give Dan a couple buzzers.
Don't buzz me.
Yeah, buzz. So I honestly don't know who wins, so we'll just say that I won.
Seems fair.
Okay.
Makes sense to me.
Sounds like the prediction title.
Congratulations to me. Great job, everybody. We got through some of them. Let's go ahead and send it back over to you guys to open the show for us.
Yeah, the real points that matter is not necessarily just guessing the players, but also being able to talk about our predictions. And for day number 2, what we want to do is to kind of put ourselves out there and ask, are there some bold predictions that you can make today? So Kibler, we'll start with you. If you made one prediction for day 2 of the championship here, what would it be?
Well, I think that despite the success that the region has had throughout previous championships, specifically the Spring Championship, I think Europe is going to struggle today. I think that we saw a couple of newcomers have some nerves that shook their play a little bit. And even a veteran in Orange, he banned Hunter, which has yet to win a game in the tournament.
Yeah.
A lot of people have brought that into question. So I think Europe is going to struggle today, despite the fact that I picked Orange for my champion.
It's quite a bold prediction for many of the fans. They consider Europe to be far and away #1. Saddle, you're blinking a lot during that prediction.
Yeah, I'm going to say I will take Kibler's semi-bold prediction of a region struggling, and I will go one step further and say APAC will not win a match today.
Wow.
Yes.
Calling out Coco Sasa and Ouya, saying they're not going to win a single series.
You could put it that way,
This
yeah.
sounds personal.
Let's put it the way that I think the 2 real powerhouses of the 4 that qualified to make it here have already made it through to play on day 3. So I think the other 2 will struggle a lot more.
All right, well, my bold prediction is that Priest will perform the worst today out of any of the classes. I'm decided to go out there. It's a little bit bold.
Including
but,
Hunter.
You're aware Hunter is in this
Hunter.
tournament, right?
Relevant sample size.
Okay,
If Hunter
okay,
plays
okay.
1 game, I'm not going to count it. But I think Priest will, because I think a lot of control decks still exist in the elimination matches. So maybe Priest will get a little bit feisty down there. We'll see if they're able to hold it out. Let's go ahead and meet our players and get ready for the first match of day number 2. First, hailing from China, please give a warm round of applause for Trunks.
Trunks looking to improve on his Spring Championship performance. He'll need a win here to do it.
And his opponent, please welcome to the stage from Argentina, Nalguidan.
Nalguidan mentioned to us that now Tom is out of the way. He likes his lineup against the rest of the field. Is this where he starts to come into his own?
Elimination match number 1. Trunks versus Nalguidan.
No sé mucho de Trunks.
I don't know much about Trunks. I only met him at this tournament.
Nalguidan 是一个
I know that Nalguidan is from Argentina. He seemed like a friendly guy when we met.
Even though I don't know much about my opponent, I believe that my skills in the game will help me move to the next phase.
I think that the decks he brought are a bit peculiar. I don't believe he has a chance to get past the group phase.
Trunks versus Nalguidan. Let's do this.
Bold words from Trunks there, saying that Nalguidan, his decks don't have what it takes to make it out of groups, and it would be a big deal if he was defeated by those very decks.
It certainly would be. You know, those are bold words to go with the bold predictions we had prior to the start of this, but I can't say that I disagree with him too much. I do think that Trunks has an edge where this series is concerned. If you take a look at Nalguidan's lineup, he's got a control mage in here, which is somewhat of a big control mage, a couple copies of Arcane Giant to have some extra endgame power. His control Warlock deck has 2 Mountain Giants in it. It's got the Twilight Drakes, it's got the Despicable Dreadlords, and he's got a Highlander Priest that has some early teched aggro cards in here. Trunks' lineup is basically as far away from aggro as you can get, and I think that hurts a lot of the tech choices that Nalguidan has made.
Yeah, Tempo Rogue is probably the closest deck to that, but it is a tempo deck. It can have aggressive starts, but not always, and you're seeing the cards in his opening hand as the reason why that's the case. And also, Trunks has the N'Zoth Warrior, which has struggled in this tournament so far, even against matchups that it's on paper supposed to take wins again. So we're going to start things off with the Rogue from Trunks. versus that sort of control style mage from Nalguidan.
Yeah, the Mana Worm's in here. Despite being here, this is a much more controlling deck, as you can notice from the Ice Block, from the Firelands portal. Mana Worm is meant to service as a card that really opens up your early game if you have it, but isn't meant to be the card that you rely on to push a ton of damage so that you have ways to win the game. So when Trunks has Swashbuckler plus the backstab here, he's offset this early, but a lot of this just goes back and forth. Nalguidan's going to be using hero powers, he's going to be trying to draw cards and use primordial glyphs. He's just trying to find big swing turns versus Trunks, but that's exactly what Trunks is trying to really present in the face of Nalguidan, is turn after turn, stick something to the board.
Yeah, and right now Nalguidan does not really have much going for him. This is 99% a ping pass turn. But what Nalguidan's trying to do is he's mousing over his cards and trying to give the illusion that he's got more options for Trunks. But right now, Nalguidan doesn't really have many plays for the next few turns. He's probably going to develop Ice Block next turn unless a threat comes out that he needs to remove with a spell from Primordial Glyph. But other than that, he's going to have a lot of turns of doing nothing.
Yeah, I will be curious to see if Nalguidan is in the Primordial Glyph as soon as possible or Ice Block camp. You know, during Trinity Series, we saw a lot of teams go for the Primordial Glyph early on to try to find something that they could just play over the next 2 turns or so. And Ice Block takes away your ability to maybe get a big power spike from Primordial Glyph sometimes.
Yeah, the question is, you know, what are you looking for? A lot of times Kabbalist Tome in matchups where you need to find something to do, or Firelands Portal where you need to just get a minion on the board in a deck that doesn't have many minions. Also, in this deck in particular, it gets you closer to Arcane Giants earlier in the game.
Yeah.
It picks up Pyroblast, which again means that he's going to have a couple of turns of not really doing much and very little development.
I don't know. I think he should have Primordial Glyphed here, TJ. I like the glyph.
I don't know, Admirable. I disagree. I think that you hold on that Primordial Glyph until you know what you need.
You're wrong.
Highest number wins.
You got it.
8.
Ugh. TJ wins.
What'd you pick?
6.
Unlucky. We'll see, though. Primordial Glyph is going to be a card that I think he's going to need as this matchup goes on, especially with the wide variety of threats that Trunks has in his deck. He may go wide and you might need Flame Strike. He may go tall and you might need Meteor, things like that. But he's going to go for it this turn, try and find a way to get something rolling here. Molten Reflection actually is pretty interesting because you can go for a big swing with Arcane Giant, Molten Reflection, your Arcane Giant.
Yeah, I think he's going to need a little bit more gas than that. I mean, his current hand right now, again, Pyroblast, Arcane Giant, and Frost Nova, they're servicing as pure defensive spells way later down the road and pure offensive spells and minions later down the road as well. The Tar Creeper that Trunks plays doesn't really apply a lot of pressure to Nalguidan, but what this does is turn after turn, it threatens the impending Bone Mare that will at some point hit the board. He's also got Cobalt Scalebane for Nalguidan to think about, but that Tar Creeper being on board means that Trunks can keep playing these little 1/1s and, you know, get 4/4s and 3/3s here and there, and eventually one of them just sticks to the board. Nalguidan, I think, is going to need some AoE if he really wants to take care of this. I'm curious about the Fireball over the Blizzard. That's a hard choice to make. I think I would take Fireball.
It is, but you have to keep in mind, you know, he does have 2 Doomsayers in his deck, and he already has a Frost over his hand. He also has 2 Blizzards stuck away in his deck too. So I feel like he has a lot of AoE already, and sort of AoE clears like that. He felt like he needed spot removal.
Yeah, Trunks was testing for Ice Barrier in this spot, I believe.
Yeah, that's the only 2 secrets in the deck. There's a single copy of Ice Barrier and 2 copies of Ice Block in Nalguidan's deck. He knew that secret was played as a 3-mana secret that was naturally drawn.
Yeah, I am a bit curious with the dagger attack. His hand is pretty full over the next couple turns.
Taking a look at some of the key cards that might separate Nalguidan's deck from other control mages that you might see. Medivh the Guardian at the top end, which is an incredibly important card for some of the top matchups in the current meta with Jade Druid and Highlander Priest.
Yeah, not a lot of oozes in the meta right now.
Not a lot of oozes in the meta either, which is means that Atiesh is going to stick. Pyroblast as well. Even in some of the control mages that we've seen more recently, Pyroblast has made its way out, but it couples well with Medivh. And then, of course, the Arcane Giants. It's just that extra reload that you have in the case of against Priest, Shadow Reaper Anduin clear on your Medivh board, or vice versa.
It's a really big kicker to this deck. I'm curious to see how it performs. I played Nalguidan's lineup versus Frodan. We ran that set, and the Arcane Giants, they felt like they were okay, but weren't quite getting the job done that I was hoping they would. And Trunks now, being very patient with Coin, gets his payoff with Edwin Van Cleef. And Nalguidan does have an answer with Fireball, but that minion pressure is really starting to build. And that Arcane Intellect is a couple turns late here. It fills up his turn very nicely, but with 2 Firelands portals, he's going to be under some heat as he approaches these swing turns.
I don't think that's the best Meteor positioning should the card from Permonoglyph be Meteor, but it's a fringe case, and it really doesn't mean much.
Yeah, the difference between a Captain and a 3/3 right now is quite small.
Yeah, or like a Tar Creeper, he would have forced him to ping, and then the ping can't go to face.
Wow.
Like that, but it's very nitpicky.
That is a lot of burn. Nalguidan just picked up, so I think his chances just got a lot better in this one, but still Trunks going wide on board.
He does have 29 points of damage over the next 4 turns. Well, he can actually fit in pings there, so he actually has 30 damage over the next 4 turns. The question is,
does he have 3 more ice blocks in his deck?
Or can he weave in Frost Novas with that? With the Firelands portals being 7 mana, it's going to be really hard to do. So.
Yeah, and that's not an unreasonable game plan. It just is unreasonable when you're under as much pressure as he's under. And that's one of the reasons that Control Mage, I think, has been performing fairly well against a lot of the slower decks, is it can just start launching burn. And if your opponent doesn't have the right offensive pressure or any defensive cards, that will lead to a lot of victories. Mage can struggle from inconsistencies. It's got a lot of high cost, some situational cards, but it's very powerful when it's unchecked.
That it is.
And I think Trunks is considering just moving in this spot, and perhaps even the Arcane Missile at times. He knows
the most damage is going to be.
He knows that Nalguidan does not have Flame Strike in his deck, and I think that he assumes he would have seen Blizzard on the previous turn if Nalguidan had it.
Yeah, and he was pretty much right with that case. And Nalguidan does not have the AoE. Frost Nova, if he uses that this turn, yes, it stalls the damage, but the only other thing he can couple with that is either Frostbolt Ping or a Fireball, which neither of those cards do much against this kind of board from Trunks. Trunks has really spaced his threats out quite well, and is also, going back to the turn where you mentioned the dagger hit, he's actually played his hands in a way to where he's leaving himself open to be able to re-dagger up and still get those dagger hits in. So he's been chipping away at the life total from Nalguidan and really piling on the pressure. And now I fear that Nalguidan is not going to be able to remove enough from the board here if he doesn't go with Frost Nova, and his block's just going to be pop next turn.
He's got to account for what the rest of his draws are going to look like over the next few turns. So it's Frostbolt, Hero Power, likely to hit the 3-2 here, and then it's looking like he wants to line up a draw with another Hero Power. This is a lot that Nalguidan's got to take care of here, and Shadow Step joins Trunks' hand as well. So that is a lot of damage with Leroy.
He can actually put him to 1 with Leroy to the face. Oh no, wait, that's actually a block pop. Because he's got Spell Power on the board. Arcane Missiles is 4 damage. Leroy is 6, so that's 10. Then he Shadow Steps the SI7 agent.
Oh.
And plays that for 1 mana. So Trunks can actually pop the block here.
That's actually really important too, because Nalguidan is going into 8 mana rather than 9. And should you see your board cleared, or in like another ice block, you get to pop. That's the worst case scenario, and it looks like that's exactly what Trunks is going for.
This is actually, I think, a little bit of a misstep, because he could have popped the block at 1. Instead, he's going to pop the block at 2, which means that a dagger up next turn won't be able to get through. If he had played he actually no, because the actual 1/1 would have spawned from Leroy. Yeah, you're right. No, this is not a misstep. This is the only way he could have done it, because the whelps would have spawned on the board. This is good sequencing.
Yes.
That's probably what he thought through too. My first inclination was, oh, I'm going to pop at 1 with the Arcane Missiles. But that's actually a really good spot from Trunks, because that could be pretty deceiving. Deceive me.
I wonder how big of a deal that is too, though. I mean, what's the difference between a block pop at 2 and 1? I mean, we're going to find out here. That's...
Oh, Volcanic Potion, but can that remove enough of the board? You could trade 2 into the Tar Creeper.
Nalguidan would have to Can he fireball? He cannot fireball potion and hero power.
No.
I think he's dead.
Yeah, I think he is just dead. There's no way for him to be able to remove the last 1 health from the second SI7 agent on the board.
Wow. If Nalguidan had hero powered a 3-3 instead, would he have gotten there? Yeah, because it would be 2 whelps into 3-4. The foresight for that is just...
It's impossible at that stage. He would have had to happen to be playing to a specific Blizzard out, or a Primordial Glyph into either Blizzard or Volcanic Potion, but maybe you're right. I don't know. That he did make that ping pretty quickly.
It sounds like a little thing, but that could have been the difference in Nalguidan living another turn or not. But Trunks, his great aggressive play in his spot, lands him game number 1.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that's a tough little spot there. My instinct was to hero power the 3-2 as well, but looking back on it, what are Nalguidan's outs in that spot? It's drawing into Blizzard, another Frost Nova, the Primordial Glyph into either Volcanic Potion or Blizzard. Flame Strike, of course, sweeps the board there, but there's a lot of effects that deal 2 damage in that spot.
Yeah, I really like the way that Trunks played that matchup on the other side. He spaced out his threats. He got chip damage in with the daggers, which made the difference in the end with a block pop that was exact. So he needed exactly that. He sequenced it well, and looks like he's on a road to a good start in this game. And you know, Trunks coming into this championship, having played in front of a home crowd during the Spring Championship in Shanghai, but in that event, it didn't go quite how he hoped.
Shanghai was the first time I played in a premier tournament. My opponents were the best players from their regions, so I wasn't as prepared and wasn't very confident. The match that got me eliminated, I made a lot of mistakes.
China has been defeated. Europe reigns supreme.
Kalento is loved in China, so I think that they may have been cheering more for him than me. This time, I have more experience under my belt. I'm more composed than I was before and have more confidence. I decided to leave my job to devote more time to Hearthstone. My company didn't really want me to go, but I was taking so much time off to play, I didn't want them to feel like I was letting them down. It was actually my wife who told me I should do this. She told me she didn't want me to have any regrets. She wants me to chase my dreams and realize my full potential.
And what a story from Trunks too, sort of coming out of nowhere in the Spring Championship, but it's really made a name for himself since then. He was actually the champion of the 2017 Gold Series event, which qualified the players to the Global Summer Championship here, and also took a top 8 in the Europe versus China event. And we actually talked to him a lot in Shanghai about his work. And he said, you know, when he first started working, he played a lot of Hearthstone at work. And he was taking time off to travel to events. And there was a funny story that he mentioned where, you know, after a couple months, they actually moved his desk to like the middle. He used to be in like the corner away from everybody else. They moved his desk in the middle, and he said he could no longer play Hearthstone at work. And it was really impeding on his skills. He said not being able to play at work was really rough, but now you can see, he said he left his job to pursue Hearthstone full time, and so far, it's working out for him, but it's a big deal for him to qualify to the next stage here.
And I do have to say that after speaking with him in Shanghai and here, his confidence is night and day. He spoke a lot about how he felt he was the underdog and that he wasn't the one who was up to par from the China region, and here he has not shown a single moment of that. I think his play has really been on point. To me, just the one big question is deck choice for him. Again, he's about a double Dead Man's Hand Warrior, and that's the one I think he's going to have a tough time with. In this matchup, though, there are quite a few tech differences across the board when you look at these guys' deck lists side by side.
Yeah, this one's quite a bit different. The big thing is the Doomsayers for Trunks, which is, you know, been a pretty standard tech from this point. But Nalguidan actually has a copy of Naturalize, as you can see in the far left of the hand. This is a very interesting card. Of course, it destroys a minion, but your opponent draws 2 cards.
It's meant to service as a tech card in matchups like this one, where the boards will eventually get to these very large states, and rather than just need something that is big to match it, you want to tempo your opponent. You know, those extra couple draws in this matchup sometimes just don't matter because both players end up drawing so many cards.
Yeah.
The bigger difference comes down to tempo. You look at the top end, both players have Kun in their deck to get those huge 7/7s on board alongside the rest of the mana pressure they can apply. But Nalguidan, I do think, has an edge, again, with the Naturalize and with the Mind Control tech that he's got in his deck as well. Trunks has Doomsayer, so there are potential for some spreading plague turns with that, but he's also got a copy of Feral Rage, which I think is quite dead in this matchup.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to see the differences in the techs in the lineups, and I think Nalguidan was expecting more control. Naturalize also has the benefit of in matchups where your opponent already has a ton of resources, like Jade Druid versus Jade Druid versus Highlander Priest, or even if Nalguidan was expecting Quest Mage. Also decks that rely on key cards to win them games, Naturalize can also serve as a way to overdraw your opponent.
Yeah.
Let's say you're in a Jade Druid versus Priest, and the Priest, you know, naturally has a lot of cards in their hand because Jade Druid doesn't do much early.
Suddenly you got a Lyra answer.
Yeah, suddenly you have a Lyra answer. Suddenly, if you play a card on the board, you have to worry about Naturalize overdrawing your Raza or your Shadow Reaper Anduin. It's a very interesting tech card that's made its way into a few Druids, but not many.
It's also great against Mountain Giant. It's one of the scarier cards, I think, that Druid faces down.
Yeah, and Nalguidan could have been expecting a lot of that because he actually brought Control Warlock, Handlock himself with Mountain Giant. So if he was expecting a similar lineup to what he brought, then that would have been a good tech for those matchups as well.
Yeah, the big story of this game, though, has just been the ramp. Trunks is, he landed Nourish early on, and he's got Malfurion very early as well. And this could be a big problem for Nalguidan moving forward in this game. He's had no ramp thus far, but I think the one benefit he has going is that his Jades are starting to ramp up. He's moving into 2/2 Jades, and he's got a Behemoth, and he's got Aya back behind this. So it's going to be the ramp and draw potential from Trunks versus the Jade ramp potential from Nalguidan.
Yeah, Nalguidan does have 50 mana worth of cards in his hand right now.
Yeah.
And no ramp to be seen. He does have, you know, those tempo tools like Kun plus the Ultimate Infestation, which works well with each other. Also just Kun plus like Aya plus Jade Spirit, which works well with each other. But at the moment, you know, once Trunks is able to start developing and get Ultimate Infestation way before Nalguidan, it's going to be up to Nalguidan to get the development lead so that the ramp doesn't mean as much.
That's a curious coin to me, because something I'm looking at with Nalguidan's hand is, as you mentioned, he's got so much mana in here. His hand, I think, is strong enough to push through these turns. He would have had Jade Spirit here into Jade Behemoth or the Spreading Plague or the Aya, and then into Malfurion. And then you're approaching the coin free 7/7 Ultimate Infestation turn. He's now delayed that by one here in order to try to get on board a lot harder. So we will see how that works out, and he gets rewarded with a Wild Growth draw here. But that's a play that is a really tough call to make. Aya is one of the highest win rate cards that you actually play in Jade Druid. But how soon does that need to be played?
Does give him the double ramp on the Jades, and we talked about in the Druid matchup, if you're behind on ramp, you need to get ahead on board. It's what you have to do to be able to win the matchup.
He's doing that.
And he is doing that. He even forgoes Wild Growth. You would have thought, well, you might as well get the Wild Growth out now since you want to ramp, but it's better to develop now and then play Wild Growth on a turn where you don't have another option for development.
Yeah, Jade Behemoth is a fairly clunky card. Into this board, I do think Jade Behemoth performs a lot stronger than the Jade Spirit does. And then this turn, it actually starts to look fairly decent for him as well. You know, from Nalguidan's perspective, he gets to eat the Mire Keeper, and then he has the 3/3 taunt versus the 5/5. The Jade Spirit 2/3 body will be able to contest that at times as well. So now the Jade Behemoth drawn. I'm actually curious if that's just better than the Malfurion in this spot.
Might be.
Does he want to mix the Naturalize with it? I mean, he could eliminate the 5/5 from board as well.
And he would also overdraw 2 cards from Trunks in that scenario.
And that's what this card is in the deck for, is situations like this one. The fact that Trunks' Jades are so small right now, I think Nalguidan might have an opportunity to get a bit aggressive with that card.
I like the Jade Behemoth plus Naturalize on the 5/5. I think that's the best play that's opened up for Nalguidan in this turn. And of course, he's going to try and get the information first of which card's going to be overdrawn. Maybe for some reason that impacts his decision making, but it's the same sequencing of why you want the card draw first. And
30 Rat's pretty dead burn.
yeah, you know, it could pull out Kun, which might be a little bit rough for him since you want that tempo, but trading a 2-6 for a 7-7 still gives you the tempo anyway. It's just, you have to trade it to a 2-6.
And I love this attack here from Nalguidan as well. 2 pretty bad burns for him, but pushing the face damage is very relevant when you're ahead as well. There's not a lot of burst potential in the deck, and so over time you need this minion damage to add up. Sure, he can eat the 3-3 for free, but right now it's not a threat to any of his board state.
There's a lot of options here for Trunks.
That tends to happen when you got a 10-card hand.
Yeah, I think Kun is definitely, you know, the initial play, but then you basically just reset your turn with an extra 7-7.
And don't forget about him.
Yeah, maybe Jade Behemoth plus Jade Idol. There's not really a great swipe on this board, because no matter what he swipes, he can't really push through it and clear something else.
Yeah, I think Trunks here is thinking a lot about mind control tech when he makes this play. There is a copy of that in Nalguidan's deck. So when he makes a play like this one, he eliminates as much of the board as he can, and then also keeps his board to 3 minions.
Yeah.
He's paying a lot of attention to that. And honestly, I like the Wrath here just to take out the body.
Yeah, he did take an extra damage that he needed to. I think he was thinking about going for Wild Growth first to cycle a card.
Yeah.
And then switched his game plan at the last moment, which meant he attacked into the 3-3 instead of the 2-3.
Yeah.
And Wrath the 2-3 instead of the 3-3.
Just forces a little bit of extra mana here from Nalguidan sometimes.
Yeah, but I mean, it's basically just an extra damage that he took, and who knows if that'll be relevant, but you know, we'll see. If Trunks dies to exact lethal and he would have had 1 extra health and could have killed his opponent on the backswing, then we can, you know, look at that play.
Well, these are the most, this is, I think, the most critical turn of the game for Trunks now. The Jades have started to get out of hand from Nalguidan's side. He's now approaching his first 10-mana turn. Trunks has had them for 2 turns now and is yet to really capitalize on the position. That is typically not the case. And so Trunks, I think, has to be worried about what he thinks is coming up here.
Yeah, and the naturalized tech really coming in big. Imagine if going into that previous turn, Trunks had an extra 5-5 on the board. Those swipes would have been looking mighty fine. He could have cleared the board and just left a 7-7 in its wake beyond that. It's kind of night and day how the board would look. Trunks could have snowballed a little bit more. Now, granted, Nalguidan still had the large Jade advantage, how big as Jade Golems actually are, but definitely would have been different, so that tech coming in big.
Trunks just put the pedal to the metal here. He says, I'm going to put pressure on Nalguidan. And this is going to get ugly. This is a big turn for Nalguidan, and frankly, I think he's turned the corner at this point.
Yeah. He's got a giant board to Trunks's 3-3. And the one thing about this board is it's not very wide. It's just 3 kind of big creatures, which means Spreading Plague all of a sudden becomes less impactful.
That's a lot more Jade picked up, Vandals in hand. I'd like to see Nalguidan actually start the race here versus Trunks. He's at 21. He did just see 2 swipes, though. So the trade here does have a ton of merit considering that.
Yeah, I mean, the lack of removal that's left in Trunks' deck, you know, really makes it so that Nalguidan's thinking, well, if he wants to remove the 6-1, he's going to have to take the 6 damage anyway. So I might as well take the quote-unquote free trade against that minion.
Yeah, but Trunks is trying to buy any time here now with Spreading Plagues. Find some time to get this Jade going, but with Nalguidan in the full grip. And this situation is not really what Mind Control tech's for. You may see Nalguidan use it anyway, just because all the minions on board are quite the same style of steel. But I'd like to see him hold that until the board tension continues to build, until Trunks starts ramping up his own Jades and try to yet again get one of those huge swings.
The mindset for him in this situation may be, though, I'm so far ahead that I just want to steal anything and get more stuff on the board so that I can close the game out as quick as possible.
And there's definitely nothing wrong with that. I mean, that buys Nalguidan now a big attack into minions or to start pushing damage on Trunks.
And he's still going to have development after this as well. I believe that's an 8.
Yeah. I believe that's a 2-3. But I also believe that's a full board. Now, there is a second Spreading Plague here, but Spreading Plague doesn't operate super well against minions that are just very large. They're buying 1 attack apiece, so you do get some time, but if Nalguidan just continues to pressure, if he has Jades to back this stuff up, Trunks is just going to find himself in the exact same spot again.
Yeah, and unlike how it usually is, there's large men of almost all of the color spectrum here.
In Aqua.
Even Aqua.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think, how do I win from this position? If I Spreading Plague, I'm kind of just buying myself 1 more turn.
Well, if he doesn't Spreading Plague, he's going to die very quick.
He is going to die very quick, but what can he do beyond the Spreading Plague? Is there any way he can? Is there any fancy way he can find to get out of this mess?
Oh, that's a wild growth in the rope is. Yeah, he's just got to try to buy time and hope for the best here, but he does not have the swing potential to get this back. He doesn't have mind control tech. There's no big swipe potential with spell power or anything. His tech cards are meant for other matchups. And we've seen Nalguidan's do work at this point. He hit the Naturalize, he hit the mind control tech. Vandrel is a tad awkward here.
Yeah, Vandrel is, especially with Malfurion being the choose 1 in hand. You don't really have room on board to get both effects. And these Scarabs are quite annoying.
It is mandatory for Malfurion to do both, so he doesn't actually get to choose here. It's just whichever one is the first option with Vandrel. That's correct?
Yes.
Ooh.
Nalguidan still has, he shuffled Jade Idols plus a natural Jade Idol on his deck, so with 12 cards left, he's got about a 40% or 33% chance to pick up 1, because I believe he has 4. I was thinking 5, but I think 4 is how many he actually has with 1 shuffle. Gotta go!
Gotta hurry up here. He didn't look happy about that.
No.
Is Vandrel miss an attack, perhaps? Not. So we got everything in.
Ultimate Infestation. Not fantastic here. Puts him at a full hand, he overdraws a card, and he only takes off 1 of these threats off the board. I think the big thing for here is for Trunks to find a way to start chaining Jade Idols. He needs to get a board that can stand up.
Wow.
The Nalguidan's board, and
Is that both Jade Idols in the bottom? He played 1 Jade Idol earlier, is that right?
at
Otherwise,
least 1 Jade Idol in the bottom 4. I think he did early on.
And honestly, the early eye from Nalguidan really put a big hurt on Trunks in this one.
There's a reason why it's one of the highest win rate cards in the game.
I think Trunks here is still looking for that Jade Idol. Doesn't find it. Oh, there's some ugly looking trades. 17 plus 7, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. Oh, that's infinite damage.
Infinite damage.
Yeah.
It's enough, and that's all that matters for Nalguidan as he ties up the series 1-1. Seems like a Druid that was quite built for the mirrors, at least more so than Trunks was, and he's rewarded for those tech choices and cruises to a pretty nice victory for himself.
Yeah, and that's really one of the things that I think is the big contrast in this matchup is that Trunks is focused much more on defeating fringe matchups and aggressive decks, where Nalguidan clearly expected more control with the way that his decks are built.
Yeah. We'll see what's going to happen in game number 3 between Nalguidan and Trunks right after this.
Ain't too far away from the fire, my friends. There's more tales to tell from Blizzard Arena, Los Angeles, on the Hearthstone Summer Championship.
Welcome back to the Summer Championship. First match of the day between Nalguidan and Trunks. This is an elimination match for both these players, currently sitting at 0-1 in their groups. The winner moves on in the tournament, and the loser is out.
Yeah, tied at 1 game apiece here. We saw Trunks make quick work of Nalguidan in game 1 with his Rogue. But in that Druid versus Druid game, it was all Nalguidan.
Yeah, all about the tech choices as well, all about the way the lineups were built. Trunks was expecting something different, but Nalguidan had that advantage. And now we're going to get into quite an interesting matchup, and this is Control Mage versus N'Zoth Warrior.
You saw Nalguidan take a deep breath as soon as this matchup started.
Yeah.
This is not an easy one for Nalguidan. Trunks' Warrior deck is a N'Zoth Warrior build. It features 2 copies of Dirty Rat to try to pull key battle cries from your opponent so that they don't have access to those massive effects. But he's got a bit of a twist in his as well. He's actually got 2 copies of Dead Man's Hand, and that's a card that we often only see 1 copy of in the control warrior decks that like to run it. You typically just don't need 2 copies of it. In this matchup, if he gets those rolling in any somewhat of a safe position, his goal is quite literally to just destroy all of Nalguidan's minions and have so much armor that he can't burn them out.
But we talked to Trunks earlier this week, and we said, Trunks, after the fact, would you have changed anything about your deck lists? And he said, yeah, probably a few things. And we said, what about specifically your N'Zoth warrior? Because it's very greedy. And he said, I don't think I needed 2 Dead Man's Hands. He said, I think even I got a little bit carried away with that.
Yeah, there you can see the Dirty Rats, Mountain Fire Armor, and the Skulking Geist. Notice he didn't ban Druid in this set, and so his warrior deck, if he's playing control, has to have a way to have finality versus Jade Druid. That's what the Skulking Geist is for. It's if he establishes control, he can then kill the Inevitability Engine. Mountain Fire Armor, great with N'Zoth. It's an early pressure tool against a lot of control matchups. They have to kill this card eventually. It means you get extra armor. And then the Dirty Rat, of course, pulling those key battle cries. Think of stuff like Raza in Quest Mage decks, taking out Antonidas or Sorcerer's Apprentices, or even against Nalguidan, pulling a timely Doomsayer for Trunks, or wiping out the Alexstrasza potential.
Or Medivh.
Yeah, those can all be very big deals for control decks. They operate on value. They need to kill high-value targets very efficiently. And so stuff like Alexstrasza delivering that 15 damage, Medivh making those extra minions, those are the kinds of cards that can be real problems.
Yeah, we saw a similar matchup to this yesterday in Tom's matchup versus Old Boy. But Tom was playing a Kazakhis mage, a Highlander mage. Now, the matchups play sort of similarly, where you need to build a board and then, you know, remove with burn and support your face damage with burn. But the Highlander mage has some tools that are a little bit more unknown, and you can't really account for them in the matchup, like Kazakhis. And Inkmaster Salia, which can give like a really big tempo swing with Kazakhis Potion, or with Firelance Portal, things like that. Nalguidan's game plan and his resources are very predictable.
Yes.
You can sort of count the threats that he has available to him. The only one that's a little bit unpredictable is Medivh, but even then, that one you can sort of, you know, kind of guess exactly how much power he's going to have on the board. I feel like this one's going to be a little bit easier, but still tough because of the amount of burn that this deck can pack.
Yeah, Tom, yesterday we saw him just apply pressure, really. It was a chain of giant threats where Jaina was doing a lot of heavy lifting. That is a card that's missing from Nalguidan's deck. He opted for Arcane Giants to be his major power, and it makes more sense with his game plan. He's not really trying to play a deck with inevitability. He's looking for that window of opportunity to start chucking burn spells. And his hand has gotten heavy here early on, but I actually think that that's somewhat of a benefit for Nalguidan in this matchup. He's really not going to win this game through aggression. The way that he's going to win it is through very powerful, high-value threats.
Mm-hmm. And he does have those in his hand with Medivh, Alexstrasza, and the first Arcane Giant all being drawn at this stage, as well as some card draw with Arcane Intellect, which is going to help him reload once those resources are used.
Yeah, now the fact that Nalguidan wasn't able to get in some early damage here with Arcanologist or Mana Worm, that does affect him quite a bit, because Trunks' game plan revolves around drawing lots of cards. You see 2 copies of Battle Rage in hand. He just needs time to find a way to draw cards from those. So when he's not under a ton of pressure early, it gives him an opportunity to actually get Grommash on board, find some Acolytes. You start using the Whirlwind hero power that the Scourge Lord Grommash provides, or Garrosh provides, and really get that card draw rolling. He's going to opt for the Acolyte of Pain here, and I think this is very wise. He anticipates drawing so many cards that he needs to find stuff to do in the meantime.
Mm-hmm. Nalguidan does have a way to deny multiple draws from the Acolyte of Pain with the Medivh's Valet, which I feel like is almost guaranteed to come out here. But first, he's going to draw cards with Arcane Intellect to see if that changes things.
And now his hand's starting to get really big. And I somewhat like the Doomsayer here. There's not a lot that Trunks can really develop to buy this back, but Nalguidan understands that the amount of damage he has in his deck is going to be important. But this Doomsayer opens up Dirty Rat play from Trunks, and that's something that Nalguidan, I don't necessarily think he accounted for. It'd be a reason to hold the Medivh's Valet as well, was to account for Dirty Rat. And he has the Arcane Giant in hand as well. I don't think he minds losing that if he has Medivh plus the big follow-up. Now that Medivh's gone.
I'm not sure about the Doomsayer. He does have his key big threats in his hand. So if Dirty Rat were to come out, which Trunks does have 2 copies of, then he could be in a lot of trouble with basically a 50% chance, 75% chance if you want to count Arcane Giant in that, to get rid of a key card. And also, if Whirlwind were to come out, or something along the lines, like the Blood Razor, he could have gotten 2 draws from the Acolyte of Pain, which he could have denied with the Medivh's Valet. There was a couple reasons why I like the Medivh's Valet better, but Nalguidan went with this play because he figured the earlier he gets Doomsayer out, the less likely that Dirty Rat is in the hand, and Medivh's Valet is a valuable resource later in the game because it's burn damage.
The other thing to account for as well, oh wow, big drop of Firelands Portal with the Grime Street Enforcer. That buffs Nalguidan's minions +1/+1 at the end of every single one of his turns, so a little bit of extra value there.
It does give some information because it shows how many minions are buffed.
That's right. The thing about it for Nalguidan though on that Doomsayer turn is it more impactful to get something hit now from a Dirty Rat, or is it later on, say post Medivh, when then you've expended spells and you have a ton of minions on board, and Trunks just goes, I got to go for it here, and then he Dirty Rats a Doomsayer then. You know, this does sidestep that massive potential later on to outright crush the value that he's tried to accumulate at that point as well. I do think that I would have liked to see him hold it and not play it there, but I understand what he's going for.
Nalguidan has the ability to get potentially a second effect from this Grime Street Enforcer.
If my opponent plays minions into this, I assume they can't kill it. I like the way that both Frost Nova and Blizzard look here, but Nalguidan looks like he's lining up this Alexstrasza. Wow, getting very aggressive here.
I mean, in this matchup, it's really always going to be the same. It's always going to set your opponent.
Arcane Giants now. That's a big difference.
Later on, potentially for free. But this board will be able to be chipped apart by Trunks.
3 draws.
And 3 cards.
So I'm going to venture to say Trunks does not want to play the Dirty Rat at this point.
Yeah, there are 3 minions in hand that he knows, and they've been buffed twice.
Shield Slam #1 found. Second Execute found as well. You won't have to expend those, but that does start building into his Dead Man's Hand. So now the question for Trunks is, what does he want his hand to look like when he actually uses Dead Man's Hand? That's another key factor to this. Something else to note is that Trunks didn't apply a lot of pressure to Nalguidan with Mountain Fire Armors. So he's got plenty of time to operate with before he's obligated to actually take those out. And if he can keep pressure high, that means that Trunks may have to expend removal or shuffle in cards that he doesn't want to prior to using Dead Man's Hand. That could make his draw potential worse later on.
Yeah, but he drew a ton of cards. I mean, there's a chance that Dead Man's Hand may not even be necessary for him to sort of muscle his way out of the game.
He did get Medivh out of the way. Yeah. Alex is out of the way, and he does have board.
Yeah, and 1 Firelands Portal as well. So taking a look at, you know, just what Nalguidan has left, it's basically a Pyroblast and a Fireball. A Fireball was used to kill a Direhorn hatchling earlier. A Firelands Portal was used. So he's got Pyroblast, a single Firelands Portal, and Fireball. That's about the pressure he has left. And this Arcane Giant, there's multiple ways. Actually,
there's quite a few ways here.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe Shield Slam, but he could armor up Shield Slam. There is multiple ways. He could execute Shield Block, Shield Slam. There's a ton of ways for him to remove this Arcane Giant. And
Shield Slam is one of your more fragile removal in this matchup because Nalguidan has so much burn in the deck that unless you just have a ton of armor, that's a card that you can't really use super effectively. In this spot, he does have Shield Block to back this up, though. And he's got Armor Smith coming down as well, plus the Mountain Fire Armor pressure here. So playing for tempo here with the Execute rather than using the Shield Slam, I do think is quite wise, despite the fact that it's typically not the case.
And now you look at the quality of Trunks' hand and board versus the quality of Nalguidan's hand and his board. It's night and day. Double Medivh's Valet and Arcane Giant. It doesn't really pick away at a board. Yes, it summons, I believe it's a 4/5 Medivh's Valet, a 10/10 Arcane Giant, and 2/3 Medivh's Valet.
And now Nalguidan's still got a lot of pretty poor draws left in the deck. There's 2 copies of Mana Worm. There's another Doomsayer.
There's a Frostbolt.
Those are, I think he might have just been checked here too hard from the Dirty Rat pulling Medivh. He needs that Medivh to pull resources from Trunks, then follow up with these Arcane Giants. Yeah. Instead, that's what the Arcane Giants are doing.
Time runs out on me.
And Trunks is just going to continue to get further and further out of range of the maximum reach of Nalguidan. And we talked about how there pretty much is a maximum reach. Primordial Glyph can pick up extra burn, but a lot of times it's too slow to pick up the burn that's necessary in order to get there. But Nalguidan does realize that that is going to be his only way to win.
Yikes. And because Trunks got Alex Strazed earlier, that Scourge Lord is probably not coming online unless he needed immediate armor burst lest he die. So slow and steady here for Trunks is the game plan.
Just pick apart the board. Like you mentioned, make sure the Mountain Fire Armor dies on your opponent's turn, or make it really awkward for your opponent to remove your board because Mountain Fire Armor is still there. That 6 armor really is going to matter as this game progresses.
So now, Nalguidan has seen a lot of removal from Trunks. He's seen both executes. He's seen a shield slam at this point. Doomsayer does have a likelihood to stick in this spot.
What to do?
Trunks expending that shield slam to preserve his 6-4 on board.
This stage, I still just feel like he's smooth sailing. Even if Frost Nova comes out and Doomsayer, and the Doomsayer goes off, and Trunks develops nothing and armors up and passes. Next turn, I still feel like he's in a pretty
I'm not
good spot.
totally sold just yet. The Arcane Giant is the major piece of pressure here. There's still a Firelands Portal in the deck. There's still a Pyroblast in the deck. Nalguidan is going to play the Arcane Giant immediately. Now, that I don't know about. I don't think he's got another way to win this game other than actually connecting with that Mountain Giant. I think Doomsayer had to be the direction Nalguidan went if he was gonna connect this damage.
Yeah.
He's fighting for board pressure now, and he doesn't have anything left to fight with.
Even if next turn he goes for Blizzard and Ping, he still doesn't have enough damage on the board without hitting with the Arcane Giant to be able to push the Arcane Giant through for face damage. So that Arcane Giant is going to be relegated unless Nalguidan picks up additional burn to trade with a minion, which is not the way he's going to win. And Trunks just takes this opportunity to load up the board. Neither player has a 1-mana spell left remaining.
Wow. Was Nalguidan accounting for exactly Fireball when he made this play?
Actually, there was a Whirlwind. Maybe. To be clear, he did have a chance to Fireball the Direhorn Hatchling, trade plus Ping over the Direhorn Matriarch, and push 10 without giving any additional armor to the Mountain Fire Armors, but leaving his Arcane Giant vulnerable. So instead of pushing 10 here, decides to try and protect the Mountain Giant for an additional turn.
He's trading that 6 damage to get in 10. If Nalguidan had used the Frost Nova Doomsayer last turn, it very likely would have been successful, and then he would have had Arcane Giant hit the board. Trunks then would have had to redevelop or remove the Arcane Giant, but then Nalguidan would have connected and had Fireball here. This scenario does look a little bit more tricky to me, but it's still fairly difficult for Trunks to actually answer this.
Ooh.
That's a big hurt in that spot, though, and he goes for Dirty Rat, and you heard the Doomsayer hit the board. Spectator client is having a small issue right now. We apologize for that.
Dirty Rat broke the game.
Yeah. And we'll get this fixed as quickly as we can. But you can see the look on Nalguidan's face. It does not look happy.
You can see the look on Dirty Rat's face, and he does look happy. And I believe that was Burn getting rid of armor.
And that's something big. I don't know what it was, but again, apologize for the spectator issue here. We'll get this fixed as quickly as we can. That is the nature of technology sometimes.
Yeah, but I mean, it definitely appeared like Trunks was effectively running away with the game. Nalguidan didn't look like he had much left, and that's exactly the case as we get back into it. A 6-9 that's unanswerable. Nalguidan has no damage or threats left in his deck, or left in his hand.
Yep, and at this
Trunks
point,
is at more health than what he started with.
yeah, he's very low on cards, but again, he has 2 copies of Dead Man's Hand, so it's just a matter of time until the cycle of no fatigue will ever begin for him.
Yeah.
So far out of range with life total. And I believe that's checkmate.
It probably is. Arcane Intellect probably the best draw on the deck at that stage, but I don't see a way out of this one for Nalguidan. He just doesn't have anything left. He's got a Pyroblast and a Firelands Portal, and that is it.
What to do? What to do?
Mage started today, I believe, with a 3-1 record.
A lot of that was Tom.
A lot of that was Tom, and now Nalguidan has quickly made that record 3-3. His mage deck just not getting the job done, at least in this series.
Okay, there is the out here. It's the perpetual cycle of Primordial Glyph into Kabbalist Tome, into more
burn.
Kabbalist Tomes, into Ice Blocks and Burn. That is the only way that Nalguidan can win this matchup. And that is nigh impossible.
Yeah, it literally has to be perfect. It has to be a chain of Kabbalist Tome into Frostbolt Ice Block over and over and over again. All the way up until the turn limit. Turn limit.
Two shots.
2 shots and 2 opportunities to seize everything he ever wanted.
Would have been a much worse song.
It would have been.
All right, so step 1, not quite.
Just pointed at the face.
Is Nalguidan looking to apply a point of fatigue damage here, perhaps? Ah, 2 points of fatigue damage. Sorry, 3, because the draw for the turn. Boom.
The draw for the turn will be the 2nd point of fatigue damage.
Yeah, that makes 3. So we just buy some damage from Blizzard there, but
yeah, but here's the infinite. No more fatigue damage. Dead Man's Hand, both of these back into the deck.
2 Dead Man's Hand.
It is quite greedy.
All right, try number 2 coming up. And this is it.
I mean, when you're playing for elimination on a stage like this,
I'm not giving up. I'm going for it.
Me too.
If I was at rank 24 playing this, I'd go for it. It's just a great story.
At least I'm going to try and make something cool happen.
You think that's how the song got wrote? He started with 2 chances, and he wrote the first one bad. He's like, okay, if you had 1 chance. He's trying to find something else.
Yeah, he's trying to think, how much burn do I have left? How much armor can he gain each turn? Can he just negate my burn? My block gets popped next turn as well. So how do I make it so that I can survive additional turns while still being able to piece together the most damage? Primordial Glyph, Kabbalist Tome.
Oh. No way. No. That's...
Nope. Flame Geyser.
All right, so Nalguidan is quite literally on the hope that there's enough burn left plan.
He does have 2nd Ice Block. He does have a Pyroblast left in his deck, I do believe, but I still don't think it's enough damage. Especially with Scourge Lord Garrosh, because he can just gain 7 health over the next 2 turns. 14 health, 7 health. Well, no, you can only gain, 12 health because he would lose the armor up for the 2nd one. So he gained 2 armor this turn. Scourge Lord Garrosh to gain additional 5. But actually not going to go for it, just going to armor up.
2nd Frostbolt drawn. 6, 7.
Still not enough.
So if he spaces the Frostbolts in a way where he lands a Frostbolt now, he Hero Powers face, he gets Ice Block down, draws Frost Nova or Blizzard. No, but neither of those work either. He doesn't even have those left.
Yeah.
The
only card left that he has in his deck that deals damage is Pyroblast.
Yeah, Dunzo.
And since Trunks will be effectively at 21 next turn, even if he Frostbolt pings this turn and draws exactly Pyroblast next turn, it's not enough damage.
I really got to think about these 2 little spots. Nalguidan hit a 3-2 instead of a 3-3 and that cost him the Volcanic Potion out, or the Blizzard out in game number 1. And this one he took Frost. He took the 2 damage over the Kabbalist Tome for the hyper long shot of the infinite chain of Kabbalist Tomes and Ice Blocks. You know, these are incredibly minuscule things that are coming up here, but I think they could be making a difference for Nalguidan's matchups here. You know, we've gone from very, very minuscule chances to win to no chance to win in some of these spots. Little things matter, and Trunks 2-1 lead after he exhausts all of Nalguidan's resources.
Took him 2 Dead Man's Hands to get there, but not really.
And Druid is the last remaining deck for Trunks.
Still going to be pretty tough, though. That Druid deck, the tech choices are built for, seems like more aggressive lineups. And Nalguidan does not really have any of those left.
That's right.
So it's still going to be a tough battle for Trunks. And Nalguidan definitely has a chance to come back. Nalguidan has participated in every playoff / preliminary since inception, but this is his first championship. And it's interesting because he found a lot of success in spring playing a completely different lineup, playing an aggro lineup. So take a look.
For this tournament, I changed my strategy a lot. I'm playing a lot more control instead of aggro decks. I think the decks I brought to the tournament are really good. However, because of the other players in my group, it's going to be pretty hard to move on to the next phase, because the matchups aren't that favorable. Tom 60229 is the toughest opponent in my group. However, I think I have a chance to win my other matches. Becoming the first South American to qualify for the World Championship would be amazing, and would mean so much to the Hearthstone community back home in Argentina.
You heard it from him, trying to be the first South American player to qualify for a World Championship, but right now, he's in a very tough spot.
Indeed he is. He's been one of the most consistent players throughout all of competitive Hearthstone thus far, and that's really saying something to the world, let alone for his region.
Yeah. And we're going to try and sort out the spectator issue that you guys saw. So we're going to be right back with game number 4 right after this.
welcome back to Los Angeles. This is the Hearthstone Championship Tour.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Summer Championship. It looks like we've got our issues sorted out and the players are ready for game number 4. Also, a big shout out to all you folks in the crowd playing some Hearthstone, jamming some games, and having a good time. And one thing to note, first person who plays Meat Wagon and gets their game shown on screen gets a personal high five from me.
I've started a ladder game right now with Meat Wagon.
Show me those Meat Wagon decks. My favorite card.
Doomsayer.
Let's get down to some serious business. Trunks 1 game away from avoiding elimination and moving on to the decider match of this group. While Nalguidan, he's got to fight back from a deficit.
He's got to win back-to-back games here, starting with Warlock and then his Mage right afterwards. This matchup for Nalguidan comes largely down to the amount of pressure that he can apply to Trunks. Although Nalguidan is typically a control deck, he does not have inevitability. If the game goes to the very long stages of the game, Trunks has the advantage via how large Jade Golems can get. But he does have 2 copies of Mountain Giant, does have 2 copies of Twilight Drake, he's got a Faceless Shambler, and he's got Blood Reaver Gul'dan to get that pressure going. So right now, those big early threats are missing, but it's looking like he's got 2 more draws to get there. And that's a Mountain Giant, so it's started.
Yeah, and look at that, 0-3 so far in this event with Warlock, which means he lost all 3 of his matches in his first game against Tom with that Warlock deck. Tom reverse swept it.
And look how fast these guys are playing in contrast to the first 3 games that they played in this set so far.
Yeah, I mean, they're ready to get underway. They have a lot of Hearthstone left to play today because the winner of this has to play later on in the day.
Faceless Shambler gets picked up.
That is big.
Now we don't. I mean, this is it. This is what his game plan is in the matchup. If he does anything other than Mountain Giant, I'm going to be shocked.
I wonder.
Zalay was in a very similar position to this with Handlock, and he was playing against Priest DreamHack. And he chose to take it slower. He ended up going with Doomsayers to buy tempo, playing Twilight Drake first to apply pressure. And when it came to the end stages of the game, he'd given his opponent enough time to find the right cards to handle his pressure. I don't disagree with what Zalay did. He had a lot of good reasoning for it.
I mean, I'm trying to think of a punish here that's 7 mana or above that Trunks could have, and I can't find one.
Even if it's Malfurion with poisons, he's already got Hellfire online.
Yeah.
Or he's got Voidwalker, Tainted Zealot, Mortal Coil. It's just stuff to fight back against it. So Trunks here, he's going to have to start building his Jades up, trying to get some defensive pressure going. But 2 8/8s is a lot to deal with. Trunks, mind you, he actually doesn't even have a check to the Faceless Shambler in his deck. A lot of Jade Druids tech in 1 Spellbreaker. Trunks has foregone that.
No, he's gone with a sort of a more lean strategy with a lot of with the double Mire Keeper. So he really wants to consistently hit ramp, and he's got some of these 1-ups down below that you know, are trying to hit some weird things. Dirty Rat in case he saw Quest Mage. He's got 1 copy of Galactic Crawler and 1 copy of Feral Rage. Those are the techs that he chose instead of, say, the Spellbreakers or the Mind Control tech.
Trunks shaking his head. This is not the spot you want to be in.
That's pretty brutal.
Now, he is approaching Ultimate Infestation turn, so if he can start chipping away at this board's position, there is a lot of hope for Trunks here. But this pressure, if it's backed up at all, could be outright game ending.
Yeah, the one thing that Warlock does pretty well is support their threats. They have a lot of decent removal that can support their threats without also removing their own threats. They have Siphon Soul, they have Shadow Bolt, they have, you know, Mortal
Siphon Soul
up, and that is a Siphon Soul, so you can push 16 damage here.
And that's absolutely what you do in this spot. Siphon Soul, I think, is the magic draw for Nalguidan here. It preserves some of the life on his Faceless Shambler, and again, he knows that Trunks doesn't have Spellbreaker, so there's no punish. Giddy up.
No frills, no fuss. Just face damage.
And there's no innervates in Jade Druid pretty much at all anymore, so I'm pretty sure that this is swipe, attack, Jade Spirit, and hope that he does not die.
He has to swipe. If he doesn't swipe, he dies.
What
There are no other options. It does set him up for Ultimate Infestation next turn on the Mountain Giant, which may be able to allow him to stabilize.
Well, Nalguidan does have some clever use here as well. Hellfire is actually quite brutal into this position. The Mountain Giant being at 8-1 or 8-4, fairly minimal difference in this spot, I think. He can consider either tapping to try to find something else, moving into Doomsayer to try to buy back his tempo. If he plays Doomsayer into an Ultimate Infestation turn, that's something, but he draws a Twilight Drake as well.
I might go over the pivot here. Twilight Drake is a very big minion that survives Ultimate Infestation turn no matter what.
I think so as well.
And if he pushes 8 here, he brings Trunks down to just 7 health, which means if Ultimate Infestation isn't there, then it's likely he'd be able to end the game next turn without the armor gain.
And if Ultimate Infestation is there, he gets to return some of that damage and look for the Tainted Zealot Hellfire turn.
Yeah,
it's coming up. Nalguidan is very healthy on life total right now, so he's free to keep tapping. He's free to take any trades in terms of like race damage that he wants to right now. Trunks has no option but to play this Ultimate Infestation. And he's going to drop to 8 after this turn.
There's Malfurion the Pestilent, though. That's big because that's the only source of life gain that Trunks has left. Actually, correction, Feral Rage is also in the deck. So a Feral Rage draw could actually be, a fast way to keep him alive in a pinch.
And second Hellfire's drawn now. 6. Now going out to 2 damage off lethal in this spot.
Yeah. He's off mana from being able to do something with Tainted Zealot.
Honestly, Doomsayers look pretty good in this spot, too. His Twilight Drake is set up to get hurt here, and what Nalguidan needs to do is find a way to deliver pressure and then buy back tempo. Hellfire Shadow Bolt could be enough to do it here. He drops his Twilight Drake to 7, but he clears off the board, gets that 4 damage in, 3 splash from the Hellfire. There's a lot of options here for him to get aggressive still.
Looks like he wants to go for protection tactic with the Shadow Bolt along with the Hellfire to keep that Twilight Drake alive.
And Trunks is really under heat now. This is almost certainly a Malfurion turn.
And to be honest, Blood River Gul'dan, it's basically just going to negate the Armor Up hero power. And he's out of threats, and he hasn't had really demons die that are going to come back and create that board swing. It's really only been a Void Walker. That's it. Trunks may be able to stabilize from this position. Because at the moment, from what I see, there's no way, even with Tainted Zealot and something fancy with Defile, to be able to push through.
Oh my. So what I see is Abyssal Enforcer Defile. Takes out Trunks' board. It leaves his Twilight Drake very damaged at that point.
Now his Twilight Drake would die also.
Are you sure?
Oh no, you're right. It would be at 1 health. So it would go down to 4 health. Defile would tick once and kill off the 4/3. Tick twice and kill off the 1/5s. And then tick a 3rd time to leave the Twilight Drake at 1 health. So you're right, he would be able to push 4.
So that's 7 more damage that would come through this turn. That would leave Trunks down to 6. And he'd have a 6-3 and a 4-1 on board.
Yeah.
So very vulnerable to swipe at this point. But honestly, I think this is the direction he's got to take. This also gives him another demon potentially that comes back.
Yeah, if you were to remove Abyssal Enforcer, then Blood River Gul'dan could be slated for next turn. That would bring back a Void Walker and an Abyssal Enforcer.
Malfurion hero power is just so good. That is likely to be the difference if Trunks gets out of this. It's already bought him 8 points of health.
But what's the play here? What makes you feel safe?
Spreading Plague is quite safe right now if you're in Trunks' position. He's already seen a ton of removal from Nalguidan at this point, and he needs to just buy some time. So
you ever open with Dirty Rat?
I do heavily consider it at this point. I think he is still in a fairly desperate situation where something has to give. we've been all set long. We've been seeing players faced with these very tough decisions that test their ability to take risks.
There it is. And
oh
pulls the
my!
Doomsayer.
And Nalguidan shakes his head.
That was a 50% chance with the 4 minutes in the deck, in the hand, 2 of them being Doomsayers, and I think that's a calculated call by Trunks. He's seen a lot of the minions being played off the top, and a lot of these support cards as well being played off the top, which means there's a lot of dead cards in the hand to the left.
The Aya is the payoff to this as well. He gets to stick a minion on board. So Nalguidan, when he goes for Blood Reaver Gul'dan here, his minion is under threat. It's opened up to have that Abyssal Enforcer traded. I don't think he's got another option here, though.
Yeah, this Blood River Gul'dan, while it's one of the key cards in the deck and for the matchup, it's not going to really bring back too many demons. It's just an Abyssal Enforcer and a Void Caller. Void Walker.
So now, Trunks may have turned the corner here.
Tangled web.
You know, spreading play comes to mind for me, but
it's only a 1/1/5.
It hurts to forego the armor too. I don't think Trunks feels quite safe giving that up just yet.
He could use the hero power for attack instead of protect, and then kill the Abyssal Enforcer with the 6/6. And develop after that. What's the development? It does. It does. But instead,
he could also just do this. I mean, burning a card here is really not that relevant for Trunks at all.
It's the most health gain. It's probably the best development he's going to get, or nearly the best development he's going to get.
I like this. I think this is great. This leaves him safe to just about everything here.
And look at that hand. That is not a good hand. Yes, he's got 3 damage swing a turn with the hero power, but he's not going to fight against a Jade Druid with a couple of 2/3s.
The Malfurion was the big difference for Trunks in this game. He was able to get through the Mountain Giant and the Faceless Shambler. Had just enough life to hang on. And Malfurion stabilized his life total.
Next turn, he's got a ton of development. One of the tech cards that might be able to help Nalguidan is the Twisting Nether card that was, during the playoffs, cut from most Warlock lists that were running threats, that were running Mountain Giants, that were running Twilight Drakes. Nalguidan has decided to keep a copy in, but it's not much. It'll clear 1 board of Jades, but Trunks will be able to redevelop, and won't be able to clear the second one. But he is just going to have to fight with those 2/3s and hope that it gets the job done. Oh! Jade Idol burn, though.
Is that the first Jade Idol?
No, that is the second Jade Idol.
You're certain?
74%.
Trunks does look quite concerned with that burn.
Made me second guess myself now. That was the second name, Jade Idol. It ruins Trunks' opportunity to go infinite, so, which means he has to pressure. He's going to continue to negate the hero power with the armor up instead of going for 3 attack. I think this is wise because of the 3 damage swing. If he goes for the attack, Nalguidan heals it up next turn anyway, plus does 3 damage to Trunks. So it's basically like just doing 3 damage to himself, unless in this way he basically just makes it go even.
And there's just not a lot left, and Nalguidan's deck to really fight this.
Not much at all.
Deviation. And if you're Trunks, you do very much enjoy seeing this.
Yes. Is this Doomsayer worth a swipe?
I like having big stuff on board, so I think so.
A tangled web.
The development behind that would basically be a Jade Blossom. Because I feel like he'd want to armor up again to try and, keep that matchup even. But with the face attack, that means he's just letting this Doomsayer go off. Most likely just going to see an armor up. That's what it is.
Oof. Is there anything Nalguidan draws to get out of this spot?
Twisting Nether is actually pretty good.
Well,
if that was second Jade Idol, which I believe it is, since Trunks did not draw cards last turn, he could have Wild Growth, tried to find Jade Idol, and then Nourished.
That's a very good point.
Is he just out of stuff? Is he out of threats?
That would mean that Trunks has to pace his threats a lot wiser. That does give Nalguidan time. If he just finds minions to fight with, if he finds Despicable Dreadlords to trade in with and use hero power to wipe out cards.
Just one Jade Blossom spacing his threats. And actually now decides to attack in here and remove that 2/2. Pretty smart because he's going to heal that back up anyway, so it's effectively the same as armoring up. He just saves that extra damage. Nalguidan does have removal for the next couple threats. He can Siphon Soul this, continue with the hero power, wait for more development, Twisting Nether hero power, try and get Trunks into fatigue.
And if
there is a possibility for Nalguidan to get through this. Mirekeeper, not good. I think this is probably the spot where he goes wide with the smaller stuff. I'm thinking double Mirekeeper. Nalguidan's effectively back at full health. One of those last two cards is Kun.
Yep. Was the other one Wild Growth?
No, he used a Wild Growth early on in the game.
The land serves me. The land serves me.
Spreading Plague. No, he used Spreading Plague.
Spreading Plague was burned. The second Spreading Plague was burned. Both Ultimate Infestations have been used. It could be Fandral.
No, we're all seeing Fandral.
My turn is not.
I think I do actually now, thinking about it.
And the games sort of mesh together. We'll look down at the bottom and see the big hands. Spellbreaker not going to really be that much, but I think Nalguidan might be forced to play the Twisting Nether here.
I don't think he is. So, the pressure that he's under right now isn't too great, and he can just hero power off the minions one by one.
Yeah, you're right, actually. He hero powers down one of the 3/3s. He's taking 7 on the backswing, but it'll be at 27, so he's down to 20. There's no burn that can reach him. He can count a swipe in a Feral Rage, so 11 damage from hand.
Yeah, and if he really wanted to, he could also just try to counter pressure with the Spellbreaker as well to keep fighting for that board spot. I don't think Nalguidan needs to use Twisting Nether here. In fact, actually, I think it's quite foolish to do so.
Actually, I don't even think he may even need to kill off a minion. I think Hero Power Face is ever an option?
Nah, I don't think so. I think that 8 damage on board it definitely adds up. And so now he's mitigated that to taking 4 damage this turn.
Yeah.
And the Spellbreaker is going to limit that even further. I do like that he's pacing this very carefully here now. But Trunks does have 2 threats online over the next 2 turns to really get through this. So, I mean, maybe there is some merit to pushing base, but I imagine Trunks is looking at armor for this.
Yeah. That would have probably also given away the fact that Nalguidan had Twisting Nether in hand. If he had just gone face.
Trunks now pushes the damage. And so he's trying to set up for the swipe, the Feral Rage, and the damage from hero power on this turn. Tar Creeper is the draw for Nalguidan, and I think that's going to force Trunks to play a threat here. The problem is Nalguidan's going to have damage on board ready to answer that. And he finds another Mountain Giant as well.
That Jade Idol ended up being a massive burn.
Again, it's the little things in this matchup that have been coming to the front here. Trunks using the Ultimate Infestation, it was a better immediate position for him, but it risked burning that Jade Idol. That happened, and now Nalguidan went from almost 0% chance to win if that Jade Idol's there to looking like he's gonna win this game.
There are a lot of unusable cards in the hand right now from Trunks. Nourish, nope. Ball growth, nope.
My thoughts are plagued.
Trying to keep as much stuff on the board as he possibly can. Also does gain quite a bit of life there. But every single card that Nalguidan draws just stalls for a little bit more time. Now he lands a Mountain Giant. And I think Trunks is out of time.
That buys him some more, though.
A Fandroid Kun is one of the most powerful cards in the game. Imagine if it drew 5 cards, too.
That'd be bad right now. Drawing 5 cards is bad if you don't have any cards left in your deck.
That is. Right now, it would nearly kill him.
Nalguidan is still free from playing this Twisting Nether. He's still under a lot of pressure here, but the Mountain Giant attack stops this. So 13, absorbs an attack, 3, 7, 8, 9, 10. I mean, Trunks, he can count the amount of damage that Trunks has left that he can maximally deal this turn, and I think Nalguidan is safe from all of it.
And he's holding on to this Twisting Nether to the last possible moment. Waiting for that last Jade to be played. He can know that the last card that presents a threat is Jade Blossom if he's been keeping track, but it's really tough for these players. I mean, we're watching this game from both perspectives, so we keep track of both hands. We were pretty sure that Jade Idol was played, but not 100% sure. So for Nalguidan, he's trying to think, well, I'm pretty sure that Jade Behemoths have been played, but not 100% sure. You have to be incredibly focused to be able to keep track of your opponent's cards. Without the ability to, write it down or take notes, which these players are not able to do. It is very stressful up there. It is focus testing.
And that's without accounting for all the other things that are going on.
Yeah,
high stakes that are
planning your turns.
Elimination match. There are people live watching this happen.
What's for lunch? Oh, sorry, that's just me.
Classic TJ.
Death is eternal. My turn is not.
And if this is the state of the game, I believe Trunks loses here. He's having to hope that Nalguidan just simply does not have Twisting Nether.
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty much over. Nalguidan is also getting close to fatigue, but he's the only player with a threat left, which is the Despicable Dreadlord.
And there's one play here. Nalguidan, I think, has figured this out. I think he's mapped it out. Hero Power face, attack face, Twisting Nether, follow up with the Dreadlord, win the fatigue race.
That's it.
Wow. I cannot believe that this is happening.
Trunks made the conscious decision of, I am going to overdraw 2 cards by playing this Ultimate Infestation to gain myself the life now so I don't have to worry about gaining it later. He had other options that turn.
A lot.
I believe at that point he had around 12 cards left. So he was like, I'm willing to take the risk of, slightly less than 20% that I burn a Jade Idol in order to gain that tempo advantage and that card advantage now.
Trunks just nod when he sees the Twisting Nether. He goes, yep, I needed that to be in those
needed
bottom
to be
cards.
The bottom card. He needed to be almost exactly the bottom card, and there's pretty much no way for Trunks to win from this point. Even if he Doomsayers now and delays it, his hero power will be kept up by the hero power from Nalguidan. Nalguidan is not in fatigue.
Game 5 after Nalguidan finds the fortunate burn from Trunks' deck. At the start of that game, it looked like Nalguidan was going to run away with it.
Yeah.
Towards the mid stages, it looked like Trunks had complete control. And then that one burn happened, and Nalguidan fit the puzzle pieces together and fatigues out Jade Druid.
This is the 13th match of this tournament and the 9th to go to a Game 5.
And that's a matchup that Trunks is supposed to win.
Yeah.
He is favored by almost any expert's perspective. And now it's Jade Druid versus the Control Mage from Nalguidan. Mind you, Nalguidan put Arcane Giants in here. And when we asked him about it, he mentioned Jade Druid as one of the reasons this card was in.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal, and you can see some of the crowd here that's come to watch. Big shout out to all you folks in the crowd having some fun. And the Innkeeper has joined us as well. He's running through some stats. That's what it looks like. He's crunching numbers. It's like, who am I going to give legendaries to today?
Oh, no, you don't want to burn that Jade Idol.
That's exactly what he said.
Checking out some of those vicious Syndicate stats. Figuring out what deck he wants to play on ladder right now.
That's right. I'll spoil it for you. It's Meat Wagon.
Big Game 5 coming up. This is an elimination match. For one of these two players, their hopes of the World Championships this year is coming to an end. For the other, another shot, another match to make it through. And Nalguidan's opening hand looks spicy.
Mucho caliente.
Muy caliente. But yeah.
Same thing.
Sort of.
I said it wrong on purpose to show that I don't speak Spanish.
Did you see that?
He threw away Jade Idol.
But he kept
Nourish and Ultimate Infestation.
the Nourish I like. Wow.
It's a momentous occasion in the history of Hearthstone. There's a deck that keeps a 10-mana card in its opening hand.
Job's done.
There were some matchups when Yogg-Saron was pre-balance change, where Druid did want to keep Yogg-Saron. It was a tool that was dedicated solely for the recovery process. If you got behind, you had that card to try to get you out of it. If not, it sat in your hand the whole game, and you were fine with that because you were probably winning. That is the only time outside of that, and in some situations with the new Death Knights, that I've been seeing players keep these extremely expensive cards in their hand. Is that card key to the matchup for Trunks? Is it that key?
We'll see, but the thing that he's going to struggle with here is dealing with early pressure.
Oh my.
But Jade Blossom is such a good pickup that allows him to roll into Nourish next turn.
The thing about it is the Mana Worm's gotten 7 damage already. And since Nalguidan's not under pressure himself, he's been able to chain together some spells here. That means he's fueling towards Mountain Giants. He's digging into his deck for bigger answers. And mind you, it's 7 damage if Trunks decides to kill the Mana Worm this turn. If he doesn't decide to kill the Mana Worm, it's more than that. You told me once that Mana Worm was the key that unlocked the door to Mage Paradise.
I told you it once, and you've told me it back about 8 times.
18.
We're pushing it.
Yeah.
But it is true. Now, that was specifically in reference to Tempo Mage, but it works in almost every scenario and doesn't kill it. That's more damage that's going to be directed at his face. Now, it does negate Alexstrasza. But I think he's okay with sacrificing that little bit of his game plan in order to keep pushing damage. But
that's a Coin Primordial Glyph. This is a lot of damage.
Especially if you just chains Primordial Glyphs. This is actually lethal.
No, shut up. That is not going to happen.
All right. Stopped at 1.
I saw the 2 in the corner. I was like, no way. I was like, this is it. This is where you beat Hearthstone. 8 damage from a Mana Worm. This is turn 4.
This Mana Worm has so far dealt, what, 15 damage with the 2 hero powers that have happened?
That Barrel Rage, though.
Even more, 2 more than that.
That's a big pickup for Trunks. And Nalguidan, he's looking a little bit nervous. His hand outside of this isn't spectacular.
No, it's not.
But now he's got the Arcane Giant unlocked, and it's not contested on board. This is a turn before Ultimate Infestation's available. He saw Trunks keep a card in his hand, and he hasn't played it yet.
Spellbender will allow the our Arcane Giant to still come down with forward mana, and what it'll also do is protect it from another swipe.
From Wrath, from Swipe?
Wrap, swipe.
Wait a minute.
Whoa.
Okay, so Nalguidan's plan here instead is to use freezes on the next couple of turns to get the Mountain Giant down so that way Trunks cannot attack into it. I really would like to see Nalguidan get this Arcane Giant down right now and then back that up with the freeze effects. If he unlocks that much damage potential, that's a very good chance he can push Trunks out of this game. One of his fears may be that Trunks actually has something like Spreading Plagues or Feral Rages to push back against that, and then the Arcane Giant can't chew through taunts in time to find that damage if Trunks simply just push the minions into Arcane Giant to back that up. So I think that that is what he's thinking about quite literally, is this minion damage chipping down the Arcane Giant and then having to push through taunts. In this perspective, I think Nalguidan has unlocked an Arcane Giant attack for sure.
Yeah. And you can see Trunks going through the motions there, attacking to test for Ice Barrier, playing the Wild Growth to test for Counterspell, and then looking kind of confused when Aya comes down, but he can narrow down the secrets to just about Ice Block Spellbound.
I think Nalguidan is on the verge of locking this up. Ultimate Infestation is also going to put a 6th minion on board. So board space is becoming limited here as well, and there's almost no way Trunks does not use this.
Hits the Spellbender, and as we get going in this match, we want to remind you guys that we have another one coming up right after this with Huya and Amix playing, getting ready to play backstage. Looking quite nervous themselves, especially, you know, with this match going so long, that's playing into their head. But that'll be coming up next on stream. But it looks like Nalguidan is just going to protect this Arcane Giant.
That Spellbreaker was huge for keeping this alive. Now that it avoided that damage from Ultimate Infestation, the swipe that Trunks just drew can't stop this. The freeze unlocks 8 damage here. He's got Fireball, Firelands Portal, another secret draw with Arcanologist, and Pyroblast on deck. I think Nalguidan is in a full race to burn down Trunks, and he might get there.
Is Dirty Rat into a Doomsayer the best chance for Trunks to try and find a way out of this one? Is it try and gain as much armor and put up a wall with Spreading Plague Feral Rage? There's a lot of options here. This is kind of the strategy. I actually tweeted out this past week about I was looking for an aggro deck to play, and Firebad tweeted me back and he's like, just play Secret Mage with Bittertide Hydra. Just slam a 5/5 on the board and protect it. That was the goal of the deck. This kind of reminds me of a lot of that, where you get a cheaper than normal. Trunks is like, slow down there, buddy. Not time to go Super Saiyan yet.
He does not want to hit that Alexstrasza. Honestly, though, finding a Doomsayer off this might be his best chance. There are 2 copies of it in Nalguidan's deck.
Goes with the armor gain.
Another Fireball picked up.
Burn. Does he just go all burn to the face over the next couple turns?
Well, if he uses the Firelands Portal now, he unlocks 8 damage.
8 damage. So that's better than the, you know, double Fireball to face plus 3 damage. Finja could be a guaranteed 2 extra damage too because of the stealth.
And there are no Murlocs in Nalguidan's deck.
Nope.
So don't pay attention to that. But now, with the
double
Ice Block
check
down,
just to make sure.
10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 19, 20. Trunks can actually pop the Ice Block this turn. Trunks can pop the Ice Block this turn. And if he pops the Ice Block, does Nalguidan get through enough damage to kill him afterwards?
Can he pop the Ice Block and defend himself enough to survive?
Well, prior to the Dirty Rat, I think he could have. No, he would have to hero power, so he wouldn't have been able to play Spreading Plague plus Swipe. And not popping the Ice Block here is going to mean Nalguidan has enough time to launch both Fireballs and then launch Pyroblast.
Yeah, I mean, he played that turn pretty quickly. Quicker than he's played the other turns.
Trunks needs to find an additional 22 damage is the amount from Nalguidan over 2 turns here.
The most health he can gain is 8 from a Malfurion with the 5 armor.
Yeah, he's at 14.
So there's no way that he can gain enough armor to survive. He needed to have popped the block that turn, I believe. Kuhn can gain 10, which would put him at 24.
He literally has to draw that card next turn. And Nalguidan, he's playing. I mean, he's showing him right now. He's like, look, you have to have that exact card Trunks
Kun or bust.
has 13 cards left in his deck. And that's not it. And there's no way for him to get past this. I cannot believe it. Nalguidan is going to come back from a 2-1 deficit here and lock up game number 5 with just a bunch of burn spells. And that Mana Worm that dealt heaps of damage early on.
16 damage from that Mana Worm before it died.
You saw a smile on Nalguidan's face. I think he knows. The Feral Rage is down. There's not enough armor for Malfurion. And Trunks knows it too.
Yeah, and it had to be Kun. Looking back on it, during that turn in the previous turn, he actually couldn't have popped the Ice Block. He would have been a damage or 2 off with Swipe. So it was basically he needed the armor gain or else. And now Guidon points the Pyroblast at face, keeping his hopes in the tournament alive. Keeping South America's hopes in the tournament alive. But that also means Trunks is now eliminated from the Summer Championship.
2 championship showings for Trunks this year is nothing to scoff at. I think he's got a bright future in this game if he keeps playing. But right now, Nalguidan is the man of this match. But he's got 1 more to go today if he's going to get out of it.
He's still got a stressful day ahead of him because the decider matches will happen in the second half of the day today. So he's got to go back and wait to see and prepare for his next match. He'll be going up against Old Boy, which is an opponent he has not played yet. It was a first round against Tom and a second round against Trunks. So this will be a new opponent for him with a different list. And it's going to be still a long road ahead of him if he wants to make it to the quarterfinals.
Yeah, that's right. Like the way he played this series, but right now, Nalguidan is standing by with Raven with an interview.
Thanks a lot, guys, and congratulations, Nalguidan. That was a crazy series, to be honest. I just want to start off by asking how comfortable you are in your control matchups. You brought a control lineup, and your opponent did as well. So how did that go for you?
En realidad, yo apuntaba más que nada a ganarle mazos agresivos, así que no estoy muy contento con el grupo que me tocó. Pero creo que los mazos que elegí los sé usar bastante bien y por más que vea muy baja la chance de ganar, por lo general como que intento buscar todo momento ganar. Por eso en el game contra Guerrero, por ejemplo, por más que ya sabía que estaba casi seguro perdido, intenté pelearlo hasta el final.
That was a lot of stuff. Let me see if I got it. He aimed mostly to beat aggro decks, so he was very not happy about his group. But the decks that he did bring, he's very comfortable with. So he thinks that's where his victory is going to come from.
Okay, and I believe your next opponent is going to be Old Boy, now that you've managed to survive in the group. How are you feeling about his lineup and going against his? Because I believe he's got another control style.
Creo que tiene un lineup mejor que el de Trunks contra el mío. Creo que el Guerrero de algo es bastante mejor que el de Trunks, por empezar, y que el Brujo es mejor que el Rogue contra mi lineup, así que creo que me puede complicar bastante.
He thinks Old Boy's lineup is a little better than Trunks even, especially the Warlock and the, who's the other one? Rogue?
Warrior.
And Warrior. But so he sees it's going to be a very complicated match.
Okay, well, I look forward to seeing that a little bit later on. Thanks again, and congratulations. Can we get another round of applause for Nalguidan? And we'll check back in with TJ and Admirable.
Now Guidon's going to be hoping for the players with Shaman and maybe even specifically Omega Zero to make it through to the quarterfinals to have a chance to match up against him because brought a strategy to deal with aggressive decks. But he's making it work against non-aggressive decks, which I think speaks a lot to that comfort that he talked about.
Yeah, and it's a really big deal to be taking a look at it and really putting it in perspective. I think that his overall approach to the game has been spot on. I do think there's a couple spots he could have tightened up a few things here or there, though.
Yeah, but coming up next, we have another elimination match. It's going to be Wuya versus Amix, player from Japan versus a player from Poland. That one's going to be coming up in just a few moments, but so far it's been a great day of action. We got plenty more. It's do or die for every player today. Every match will have someone going home, and for this last one, it was Trunks, but now Guidon is keeping his hopes alive of a quarterfinal appearance and potentially a world championship appearance, and also keeping the hopes of South America alive. He mentioned that he wants to play to encourage South American players to get out there and play competitively, but we'll be right back with match number 2 right after this.
succumb.